I worked my ass off for years, sacrificing my time, health, and happiness to prove myself. But then my jealous coworker tried to ruin everything I had built and destroy my career. When I first started working in the restaurant industry, I thought I had finally found a place where hard work would actually matter. I wasn't looking for glory or recognition. I just wanted to do my job well, learn, and maybe build a future out of something I enjoyed. Cooking had always been something personal to me. It was the way my grandmother showed love, the way my family celebrated milestones, and the one skill I felt confident about no matter what else was going wrong in my life. So, when I landed a job in a mid-sized but busy restaurant in my city, I thought I had finally stepped into the real deal. The kitchen was fast-paced, the orders never stopped coming, and the head chef was a perfectionist who could smell an undercooked steak or an over-seasoned sauce from across the room. It was stressful, sure, but it was also thrilling. I wanted to prove myself. That's where I met Jason. Jason was different. On the surface, he was charming. He knew how to crack a joke at just the right time, how to make the servers laugh, how to talk to the chef without seeming intimidated. He carried himself like someone who had been in the industry forever, even though I quickly realized he wasn't actually that skilled. The first week I worked with him, I noticed he was slow. Like, really slow. He would be halfway through chopping vegetables, when the rest of us had already moved on to prepping proteins. He burned sauces. He forgot tickets. He froze under pressure. I should have seen the red flags, but I didn't. Instead, I felt bad for him. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he just needed someone to give him a chance. I had been the new guy once too, and I knew how crushing it could feel to constantly fall behind. So I stepped in. I started helping him finish prep work, covering his stations, double-checking his plates before they left the pass. At first, he was grateful. He would smile and say, "Thanks, man. You really saved me there," or "I owe you one." But then it became routine. And routines in a kitchen are dangerous because they become expectations. What started as me helping him here, and they're quickly turned into me basically doing half his job on top of mine. I told myself I was being a team player. I told myself it was temporary, that he'd pick up speed eventually, that he'd learn from watching me. He didn't. In fact, the more I covered for him, the more careless he became. Jason had this habit of disappearing at the worst possible times. The kitchen could be absolute chaos, servers yelling in orders, the head chef barking times, tickets piling up like a never-ending receipt roll, and suddenly Jason would need a smoke break. Sometimes he'd vanish to the walk-in cooler to grab supplies and not come back for 10 minutes. Other times he'd claim he had to check on dessert prep, even though dessert wasn't his station. Guess who picked up the slack? Me. Always me. At first, I convinced myself it was fine. If I kept the flow going, if I made sure plates got out on time, the whole team would look good. That's what I thought teamwork meant. And honestly, there's an adrenaline rush in holding a kitchen together when it's seconds away from collapse. I like being the guy who could handle the heat. But kitchens are ecosystems. When one person starts leaning too hard on another, balance gets destroyed. I remember one Friday night in particular. We were slammed, reservations packed, walk-ins lining up outside, phones ringing off the hook. Jason was on hot appetizers, which meant he was responsible for dishes like calamari, sliders, wing stuff that came in constant waves. I was on grill, and believe me, steaks and burgers don't wait for anyone. Halfway through service, I glanced over and saw Jason drowning. Tickets all over his station, pans burning, nothing plated. The head chef was seconds away from exploding. So what did I do? I jumped in. I left my grill station between orders, started plating his appetizers, tossing wings and sauce, making sure sliders weren't raw in the middle. By the time the night ended, I had basically cooked 2 stations at once. My shirt was soaked through, my arms burned from the heat, and I could barely feel my legs. But everything went out on time. Customers were happy. The chef cooled down. Crisis averted. And Jason, he clapped me on the back, grinning like we'd just won a championship game. "Couldn't have done it without you, bro," he said. At that moment, I thought he meant it. I thought maybe he'd step up after seeing how much I carried him. Spoiler, he didn't. The more I saved him, the less effort he put in. It was like he knew I wouldn't let him fail. So why bother trying? And the worst part, nobody noticed. The servers just saw food coming out on time. The chef just saw tickets being cleared. Customers were happy. Management was happy. From the outside, it looked like Jason and I were just a well-oiled machine. No one realized I was the engine and he was just along for the ride. That's when the resentment started creeping in. I'd come home after shifts too exhausted to eat, my hands shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. I'd wake up sore, my feet throbbing like I'd run a marathon. And every time I thought about how much of that work wasn't even mine, anger bubbled up in my chest. Still, I stayed quiet, because in kitchens, complaining makes you look weak. I thought if I just pushed through, eventually people would notice who was pulling the real weight. But I was wrong, because Jason noticed first, and he used it against me. The first real red flag came on a Tuesday lunch shift. It was supposed to be an easy day, only a few reservations, mostly walk-ins. The kind of shift where you can breathe a little between tickets. I figured it would finally be a chance for Jason to prove himself. But of course, he was already falling behind. I was setting up my grill station when I heard the chef snap. "Jason, where's my soup of the day? Table 12's been waiting 10 minutes. Jason mumbled something about being just about done, but I could see the pot sitting cold on his burner. He hadn't even started it. I sighed, grabbed the stock, and started the soup myself. It wasn't my job, but if I didn't do it, that table would be furious and the blame would hit the whole kitchen. When the soup finally went out, the chef muttered, "Finally, try to keep up, Jason." And do you know what Jason said? He didn't admit he'd forgotten. He didn't say, "Thanks, man, for saving my ass." He said, "Yeah, I'll talk to my name about getting on top of things earlier." I froze. Did I hear that right? Was he throwing me under the bus for something I fixed? It was subtle, but it planted a seed of doubt. After that, I started noticing other little things. He'd take credit for dishes I finished. He'd tell the chef we had handled the rush, when really I had. Sometimes he'd even joke with the servers that I was the messy one on the line even though I was the only one cleaning up after him. I wanted to call him out, but kitchens run on hierarchy, and I didn't want to look like I was whining. So I bit my tongue. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Saturday, our busiest night of the week. The line was packed with tickets. The servers were practically sprinting, and the chef was in full drill sergeant mode. I was deep in the weeds on grill steaks lined up, burgers sizzling, timers going off when suddenly the chef stormed over to me, red-faced and furious. "My name. What the hell is going on with these appetizers? They're late, they're cold, and half of them are undercooked. This is your station. Get it together or get out of my kitchen." I blinked in shock. "Chef, that's not my..." But he cut me off. "Don't make excuses. Jason already told me you've been slacking. He said he's been covering for you for weeks. I don't want to hear it again." My stomach dropped. My hands went numb. Jason told the chef I was the weak link? That he had been covering for Emmy? I looked over and saw him at his station, calmly flipping sliders, not even looking my way. He didn't say a word to defend me. In that moment, everything clicked. All those little comments, all the credit he'd stolen, all the blame he'd shifted, it had been building to this. He hadn't just been leaning on me. He'd been setting me up. And the worst part, the chef believed him. I took the fall that night. I worked harder than I ever had, trying to prove myself. But the damage was done. The chef's eyes were on me the whole shift, every mistake magnified. By the end of service, I felt like I'd been hollowed out. When the night finally ended, Jason clapped me on the shoulder and said with a smirk, "Rough one, huh? Don't worry, you'll bounce back." I wanted to punch him. Instead, I just nodded and went home, my head spinning with rage and disbelief. That was the night I realized Jason wasn't just lazy. He was dangerous. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It was slow, like rot spreading through wood. After that Saturday, things in the kitchen shifted. The chef's tone toward me changed, shorter, sharper, always laced with suspicion. Every time a plate came back for being underseasoned or slightly late, his eyes flicked to me first. It didn't matter if it was Jason's station or mine. I was the problem now. The other cooks noticed too. They didn't say it out loud, but I could feel the difference. Less eye contact, less banter during prep, less trust during rushes. In a kitchen, trust is everything. You have to know the guy next to you has your back. That if you call for hands, someone will be there. But suddenly, I was isolated, alone in the middle of the storm. Meanwhile, Jason thrived. It was like watching a snake shed its skin, then slither into a new one. The same guy who couldn't chop onions without nearly slicing his fingers off was suddenly being praised for his efficiency. The same guy who hid in the walk-in cooler during rushes was being called reliable. The same guy who I'd carried for weeks was now being treated like the backbone of the line. And every compliment he got felt like a knife twisting deeper into me. At first, I tried to fight it silently. I doubled down on my work, came in early, stayed late, cleaned my station until it shone, took on extra prep. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I outshined him, the truth would surface on its own. But here's the thing about lies: once they take root, they don't just vanish, they grow. And Jason watered his lies daily. He dropped little comments to the chef like, "Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on my name," or "Yeah, I had to fix a couple of his plates, but no big deal." He said it casually, like he didn't mean any harm. But each word chipped away at my reputation. The more he built himself up as the hero, the more I became the villain. I can't even describe the frustration. It wasn't just the exhaustion of doing my own job and covering for him. It was the injustice of it all. The silence I had kept to be a team player was now suffocating me. I had let him write the story, and I was cast as the failure. I remember one night, standing at the sink after close, scrubbing pans so hard my knuckles split open. Jason leaned against the wall, scrolling on his phone, smirking. Tough night, huh? Don't take it personally. Chef just needs someone to blame when things go wrong. I clenched my fist, blood mixing with the soapy water, and finally said, "Funny. I always thought that was supposed to be you." He laughed, just laughed, then walked away without another word. That was the moment I knew I had two choices: keep suffering in silence, or do something. So I started paying attention. I watched him carefully during shifts. Not just what he did, but what he didn't do. Every shortcut, every corner he cut, every time he disappeared while the rest of us were buried in tickets. I noted when he handed off half-finished dishes to me, when he burned a pan and scraped it out instead of starting fresh, when he sent out raw sliders and hoped no one noticed. And slowly, I started collecting proof. I'd take photos of his abandoned stations after rushes, pans blackened and plates half-prepped. I'd jot down times when he disappeared mid-shift. I even asked servers to confirm when food came out late from his side, not mine. I wasn't petty, I was desperate, because I knew if I didn't defend myself, no one else would. The breaking point came about 3 weeks later. A VIP party came in, local business owners, food bloggers, the kind of people management really wanted to impress. Everything had to be perfect. Of course, Jason crumbled. His appetizers came out late, soggy, and undercooked. The servers were furious, the customers were complaining, and the chef was seconds away from an aneurysm. And right on cue, Jason tried to pin it on me. "Chef, I told my name to help me out earlier, but he dropped the ball. I can't do this alone." I didn't even flinch this time. I pulled out my phone, showed the time-stamped photos of his abandoned station, and calmly said, "Chef, with all due respect, this is what his station looked like while I was running both grill and cold prep." For a moment, the kitchen went silent. You could hear the sizzle of the grill, the hum of the cooler. Then the chef's face hardened, not at me, but at Jason. Jason, office, now. I don't know what was said in that office. I don't know what excuses he tried to spin. All I know is that when he came back, he didn't look smug anymore. He looked pale. He didn't say a word to me, not that night, not ever again. A week later, he was gone, fired, and me. The chef didn't exactly apologize. Chefs rarely do, but his tone toward me softened. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight, but it started to. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. I won't lie. The damage lingered. Even after Jason left, I carried the weight of what happened. The exhaustion, the bitterness, the realization that no matter how much you give, some people will only take and take until you're empty and then try to bury you under the rubble. But I also carried something else, a lesson. Don't let your silence write someone else's story. Don't assume hard work will always speak for itself. And never, ever let someone convince you that loyalty means sacrificing your self-respect. I still work in kitchens. I still love cooking, but I draw my lines sharper now. I know my worth, and I don't let anyone use it against me, because I learned the hard way. Sometimes the person you save will be the one who tries to drown you. After Jason was gone, the kitchen felt lighter. Not just because there was one less person to cover for, but because I finally felt in control again. I started taking shifts with more confidence, speaking up when things didn't make sense, and even helping newer hires, but this time on my terms. I helped because I wanted to, not because I had no choice. I also realized something about trust. It's fragile. You can give it freely, but once broken, it leaves scars. I still think about Jason sometimes, not with anger. Not anymore, but with a cautious awareness. People will surprise you, and not always in the ways you expect. One evening, a few months after the incident, the chef pulled me aside. He didn't say much, just nodded and said, "Good work tonight. You ran that line like a pro." That small acknowledgement felt bigger than any praise Jason had ever stolen. I smiled, because I knew I had earned it not by covering for someone else, but by holding my ground and proving my worth. I even started mentoring others, not because I wanted them to own me, but because I wanted them to learn from my mistakes. I tell them, work hard, yes, but don't let anyone use your effort as a ladder to step over you. I tell them how I trusted someone too easily, and how it almost cost me my reputation, my confidence, and my peace of mind. Now, when I look back, I see it all clearly. Jason's betrayal was painful, yes, but it also taught me boundaries, vigilance, and the importance of standing up for yourself. It reminded me that sometimes the people you save will be the ones who try to drag you down, but that doesn't define you. Your response does. I've rebuilt my reputation, my respect, and my confidence. I work harder than ever, but I also work smarter. And while I'll always remember the night I was betrayed, I'll never forget the lesson I learned. Your effort is precious, and you have the right to protect it. Cooking is still my passion. The kitchen is still my battlefield. And I'm no longer just surviving, I'm thriving.